all the way to MRSA. Had MRSA? Enjoy it? Not very enjoyable. MRSA is serious. It's athletes and HIV. An athlete that is HIV positive cannot be discriminated against from playing. Actually, sort of, kind of, but yet no. Okay, there was a guy that was wanting to box. Now, boxing is a pretty bloody sport, right? Wanted to box, and lo and behold, it was in Oklahoma where they were going to fight. I don't know why Oklahoma, but he did an HIV test, and they found out that he was HIV positive. And the other guy says, "No way, am I fighting this dude?" So obviously, if it's a professional sport, it's not the same as public. Since it's public schools, right? Public universities, then you get state money. You're supported by, and so it's a whole different rights type thing. So, can we go through and do drug testing? Well, yes, as long as you've got your parents' permission, you're going to do drug testing. It's an option. It's extracurricular that you participate in sports or ag or band or whatnot. So the school district can make those decisions, and that's been upheld by the Supreme Court, etc. But can we go through and say, all right, let's go and see if you have hepatitis B. Let's see if you are HIV. You can't do that. As a matter of fact, there was one place I was working, and they hired somebody who was working inside of athletics that was HIV positive. They were the cleanup guy, the janitor, the custodian. There's lots of places that this guy can cut himself on, but he could not be fired unless it was fired on a performance basis. If he didn't do his job, you can fire him, but you could not do anything to the guy. It ends up to where those that ended up with the HIV, the one man told me, he goes, it seems like the one with HIV positive had more rights than those that were HIV clear or negative. You just have to learn to live with it and be smart. So, protecting others from the risk of infection then has got to be the priority of the trainer, the coach, etc., the officials. So, how do we protect them? We see blood, we got to get it done. All right? Mandatory screening for HIV may not be allowed to determine if one can play sports. Encourage those who are at high risk to get voluntary anonymous testing. So, those kids, if you, and it should be brought up pretty much in every sport, although you talk about taboo, it gets taboo because there are so many different levels of maturity with high school kids. But if you go up and you say, if you are intimately active, you should certainly be screened for STDs. I agree with that, and I think that if you put it in that way, it's probably tactful enough to where it's not a problem with that. Obviously, you can put that in a very non-tactful way, and lo and behold, you're going to get yourself in hot water. But if you're tactful, if you're educational, like we said, as far as like the other map that we saw, education is the best way to stop AIDS. Education is the best way to stop HIV from spreading. But encourage those who are intimately active to get tested for STDs. Many states have confidentiality laws, and you should be aware of the laws in your state. That's pretty much going to be the norm. You cannot be going through somebody's medical record and say, "Holy smokes! Hey, that kid over there is HIV, so we need to find some way." Well, obviously, when you change something for somebody else, the kids on the football team, the kids on the baseball team, the kids playing basketball, they're going to wonder why, because it's not in the norm. All right? And so that's how things get out of control and people get in trouble. Now, what do you do as far as to help prevent? Cross-contamination is obviously you remove the athlete who was bleeding from the competition or practice. All right? If their jersey or pant or whatever is saturated, you gotta replace that. Obviously, you don't go and say, okay, let's change your jersey, but not address where you're bleeding from. Put the new one on and then try to address it. Get rid of the jersey, address the problem, cover it well enough to where you don't have a problem uh, with the remainder of the game or practice, and then put a new jersey on. Pretty easy stuff. All right, there are commercial products to remove blood from uniforms and those little small spots. That stuff can be, oh, I don't know, $15 a quart. So you're looking at $60 a gallon. It'd be pretty expensive, but well worth it. Always, always, always wear gloves to protect yourself. So I had a kid. He came in from practice, and so I went and I put some gloves on. He had a cut, so I put gloves on, and he gets on my case. What are you doing? Why are you doing this? You think I have AIDS? I said, no, no, no. But what if I do? And so I turned it around, right? He says, wear those gloves. I said, exactly. I'm here. We're protecting each other. So it's not just HIV, okay? It's hepatitis, etc. You don't want to put yourself in a position to where you have to fight something that you don't or shouldn't have to fight. All right? An anti-germicidal agent for washing your hands immediately after working with blood or bloody fluids. Dispose of your in biohazard containers. Now, OSHA, the Occupational Health Safety Agency, which is a federal deal, it's another bureaucracy. If you deal in blood, you need to have those red bags. But there's a loophole in that, and that is you have to deal in quite a bit of blood in order. There's no way that we deal in this room that we don't deal in enough blood in an entire school year to make it for 1 month of red bags. The whole year long. Now, if you're talking about an emergency room, you're talking about, yeah, you're going to see some blood. But if you're talking about in athletics, you get some cuts. Exactly. All right. And you would be surprised, absolutely surprised, how little blood that you really think is a whole bunch of blood. All right. So sometime we come in here one of these days. We might do it tomorrow. I might get some like punch Gatorade or whatnot, something that looks red, and then we can put it all over the floor, the table, and then I'll know exactly how much is in there, and then you come in and you tell me how much it is, and I promise you, it's not going to be. It's going to be probably half or less than what you think it is. So the biohazard containers. That's why we don't have them. Is that we don't see enough blood in order to have those. You want to clean your tables, your counters, etc., that might be contaminated. If we just go ahead and clean them all the time, we got this knocked out. But if we got somebody that comes in with a cut, then we want to make sure that we take care of that. Watch. Make sure you're not cross-contaminating. Make sure that person's not cross-contaminating. Let's say that they had just come in, they had a cut, even though it's on this hand, right? But they've been doing this the whole time, wiping their blood with their left hand, and then they come in and they lean on something. Or they come in and they touch someone. They're cross-contaminating everything they come across. And you don't want that to happen. So you got to put your attitude on of, hey, I'm in charge. Keep your hands to yourself. Just stand there. All right? Now, one of the other things that you can do that you probably see me do all the time is If somebody's got a cut, he comes in. I had a kid came in, he had a cut right here on his knee. I never gloved up. And the reason I didn't glove up is I reached, I got the gauze, I put that on here, and I handed it to his hand. Said, you grab this. And he took that, and I said, now wipe that. I'm not doing it, he's doing it, and it's all getting done. But it's not such a bad cut that I need to do sutures, or not sutures, but steri strips, etc. Something like that where a scab gets rubbed off, they can do it themselves. You just direct them. But make sure you direct them wise enough to where they're throwing everything only directly into that bag that's going to be thrown out. All right? So place biohazard warnings on containers if you're using those. There is no cure for HIV, but antiretroviral therapy can help control the virus. So there's no cure. Anybody know Magic Johnson? You've heard of him? What's his claim to fame? One, he owns like movie theaters. What else? How did he get all that money? Magic Johnson. Nobody knows the name Magic Johnson? Played for the Lakers. Yeah, with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and James Worthy and Byron Scott, and they won championship after championship. Okay, so he showed up and he had a press conference one day, and he was HIV positive. He sat out a year, and then he came back and played. HIV positive, he played in the NBA. All right, at that time, when he called up or showed up and has a press conference and says, hey, I'm HIV positive, probably the late 1990s. And so mid 1990s, at that time, you pretty much were on your way to a deathbed. But he's got money. And so with his money, he was able to get the best, absolute best treatment. And today, they say today that he has actually beaten HIV. Would I trust it? If I was a chick, wanted to date Magic Johnson, I don't think I'd trust it. I think that's too deadly a sword for me to get into. But these antiretroviral therapies are doing pretty good. Matter of fact, it's a series of medicines that helps prevent the virus from multiplying. You're slowing it down. You're not going to get rid of it. This reduces the amount of HIV in the body and helps reduce the risk of transmission. But if you leave it untreated, HIV eventually is going to go into full-blown AIDS. Remember, only what is it? That 1 in 8 still don't know they have HIV. So, without treatment, people who progress to AIDS typically survive for about 3 years. If you do, once you have a dangerous opportunistic illness, that's what kills you. It's not that HIV kills you. It's not that AIDS kills you. And what does AIDS stand for? AIDS. I heard it what? Acquired immune deficiency syndrome. Yes. So, if you have your immune system is deficient, you can't fight off those things. So it's those other opportunistic. It's a Kaposi sarcomas. All right, you never see them unless you find someone who's ended up to where their immune system is depleted. All right. So if that's the case, if once you have a dangerous opportunistic illness, life expectancy without treatment is probably then within a year. However, if you're taking your ARTs and maintain a low viral load, then you can enjoy pretty much a normal a normal lifespan. Far cry than what was going on in the 80s. All right. All right. MRSA. We see MRSA in here. Matter of fact, just here, you in my class, there's probably 3 of you right now who has MRSA on your body. MRSA is methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. You want to learn how? We can put that on there. Spell, or what is MRSA? Staph infection that is methicillin resistant. It's a super bug. Okay, remember we talked about taking the um, antibiotics for virus. All right. Well, this staph has made itself stronger and resistant to antibiotics. So you've got to have some serious antibiotics. We had a kid over at one of the schools I was working at here in town. He got MRSA on his arm. He ended up 4 days in the hospital, and uh, you can lose limbs and you can lose life because of MRSA. It is a nasty, nasty, nasty infection. Okay? All right. I'm glad you want to know that, and we'll get to that. But methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, or MRSA, is a bacterial or bacterium that causes infections in different parts of the body. It's tougher to treat than most strains of Staphylococcus aureus or staph because it's resistant to the common antibiotics. So you go out and you're playing sports, all right? Rough your skin up a little bit. There's the opening. You'll get it in there, okay? Just the smallest of wounds, and it can get in there. So you've got to be careful about making sure that you stay washed, clean, etc. One of the worst things that happens here, and it happens all across Texas. I don't know why, but when I was in high school, we would get done with football practice. We would grab a towel, walk down and get in the shower, and we would shower. Holy smokes. What a concept. Washing off all the dirt, right? The other great thing about it is that you are hot. And the shower, you could turn it down and you could cool off pretty quickly with the shower. Today, kids come in, they go out, they go to practice, they go home, change their clothes, and go home. Then they take a shower before they go to bed. So now what you've got is you've got 6, 7, 8 hours of whatever is on you to work its way in you. Not cool. All right? The symptoms of MRSA depend upon where you're infected. Most often it's caused by a mild infection on the skin, causing a pimple or a boil. Also become more serious skin infections, or you can get it through surgical wounds. Even though they try, I'm telling you, you want to go someplace that's got staph, go to a hospital. It's everywhere. They try like crazy to kill it over and over. Another place you get it, the weight room. One guy gets on there, next guy gets on there, the next guy gets on there, and all it takes is one piece of equipment that's not been washed, and you can have a problem. The blood infections or infect surgical wounds, the bloodstream, the lungs, or the urinary tract. All right, here is a staph picture. That's a before, it's the same person. Okay, they had this pimple, they let it go, and that staph will be eating the flesh and killing flesh. So, not a great thing. All right, though most MRSA infections aren't serious, some can be life-threatening. Plain and simply, what happens is that we get people that come in here and they'll say, "Look, I got a spider bite," and so back to class here. So many public health experts are alarmed by the spread of tough strains of MRSA because it's hard to treat. MRSA is sometimes called the superbug. The garden variety of staph are common bacteria that live in your body. So there it is that a third of us have it. You'll find it probably in your nose, all right? Plenty of healthy people carry staph without even being infected or by knowing it. So in fact, a third or 33% of us have a staph bacteria in our noses. Yeah, as long as you're not sitting there cutting your nose, it's not a real smart idea putting those nose rings in then, is it? What? All right? But here's my whole deal about the spider bites. So they'll come in and they'll say, "Hey, look, I've got a pimple, and I got a boil. I've got a whatever on my arm. I think it's a spider bite." All right. And here's my answer: did you see the spider bite you? Then it's not a spider bite. If you didn't see the spider bite you, it's probably not a spider bite. That's infection. It could be. It could be. It could be. It also could be the generic staph that's not the methicillin resistant. Either way about it, if you think you have a spider bite and you didn't see the spider bite you, you didn't get a spider bite. More than likely, it's not a spider bite. All right. So, and that with teenagers all the time, I got a spider bite. Well, it's not like they want to come in and say, "Hey, look, it's just really red and it's got a pimple in the middle of it. I think my arm's dirty." I'm not gonna say that, right? I think I got a spider bite because it couldn't be just regular biology. The other, the other thing that you can do with it is, all right. So if it's right here and the red spot around it where the infection is, and that's what the red is infection. The other thing that you can do is put a glove on because you don't want to feel how their temperature is below it or above it, and then raise to it. If it's got a fever, it's infected. All right? Take a pen and a magic marker, and circle around the outside of the red spot. And then the next day, see if that red spot has stayed the same or has grown. And it'll tell you if it's growing. It's not so much bad to pop it, but you need to pack it. And when I say pack it, you get a piece of gauze that's about that thick or about that wide. It's real thin, but it's about that wide. And it'll go from the wall to here. And you'll take that and you'll take a Q-tip and you would just keep packing it in the hole. All right? Yes, it hurts. To help keep it from gathering the pus. It will absorb any of the pus that's in there. And the next day, whether you pop it or not, if you've got a MRSA, all right, and they lance it and they're going to squeeze all this yellow and nastiness out, then you're going to pack it with this gauze, this long gauze. You're going to take it out the next day because you don't want that residual nasty infection in there. And you're going to throw that out. And now you're going to get another piece that's 6 feet long, and you are going to pack it back in that hole again. It does. It's not a fun deal. But if you don't do it, you lose a limb or a life. Yeah, there's some nasty stuff out here. All right. So staph can be a problem if it manages to get into the body, often through a cut. Once there, it can cause an infection. Staph is one of the most common causes of skin infection in the United States. Usually, they're minor and don't need surgical or special treatment. Less often, staph can be a serious problem like infected wounds or pneumonia. Usually can be treated with antibiotics, but over the decades, some strains of staph, like MRSA, have become resistant to the antibiotics, so they're not going to work. And so now you got to go get the good stuff. And the good stuff is going to be intravenous, and the good stuff is going to be while you're laying in the hospital bed and watching TV that's really poor on sound. You know? You can never hear that thing in the hospital. All right? MRSA was first discovered in 1961. It's now resistant to methicillin, amoxicillin, penicillin, oxacillin, and other antibiotics. Well, some antibiotics still work. MRSA is constantly adapting. Researchers have to develop new antibiotics because of this adaptation. So it's sort of like that dude that's a real good boxer. All right? So you beat him one week, right? Because you used the right jab. Now he knows about that, and he's going to stop the jab. He's stopping the antibiotics. And so you have to figure out another way of getting to them. Same with this MRSA. It's nasty stuff. It's spread by contact. So you could get MRSA by touching another person who has it on their skin, or you get it by touching objects that have the bacteria on them. MRSA is carried or colonized by about 1% of the population, although most of them aren't infected. Is that all that there is? Is that why you're only doing that? Is that the last one? All right. So MRSA is not. It's serious stuff. The other thing is, if somebody has MRSA, you make sure that you wash their uniforms separately. Don't share towels with people. Holy smokes. All right? You share towels with people. Here, I'm just going to wipe off my sweat and MRSA that's, diluted with water. Oh, I know there's no more towels here. It's pretty dry. You go ahead and use it. I don't think I'm going to do that. Okay? But yes, it happens. High school kids are not the smartest people on earth. All right? That's why they're here in high school, because they're trying to become the smartest people on earth. Right? All right. Any questions on MRSA? Any questions on bloodborne pathogens? Yeah. You don't need to be outside when you're taking the antibiotics because the sunlight will kill the antibiotics. Yeah. There's all sorts of stuff. And just to let you know, as far as talk to Dr. Fall, he will tell you some of the craziest stuff because he has to deal with the orthopedic side of it. So if you get something that's got to be amputated, it's the orthopedist who's going to be doing the amputation. All right? One guy went to the lake. There is there is flesh-eating bacteria that lives in water. You go to the lake, you cut yourself on the bottom of the deal. If that flesh-eating bacteria gets in you, you'll lose your leg within 2 days. Emphasize ranch?